Namaskar to all. Apologies, this video was supposed to be uploaded last week, but due to several technical problems, which I was not able to solve till today, so it is going late. This again is talking about the returns that we started one chapter before. Returns is a very important point on our investment because अगर रिटर्न नहीं हुआ तो हम इन्वेस्ट क्यों कर रहे हैं? तकिए के नीचे रख के सो जाओ, कोई रिटर्न नहीं होगा और हर रोज देख के उसको उसकी खुशबू देख के शांति भी रहेगी। चलिए देखते हैं आगे। क्विक रिकैप, हमने क्या किया? रिटर्न इज व्हाट वी गेट व्हेन वी इन्वेस्ट इन सम एसेट। रिटर्न इज द रीजन ऑफ इन्वेस्टमेंट। अगर हम इन्वेस्टमेंट कर रहे हैं और रिटर्न नहीं हो रहा तो उसका कोई तुक नहीं बनता या उसका कोई लॉजिक नहीं बनता है। रिटर्न्स आर टैक्स्ड। जो भी रिटर्न है उसमें एक टैक्सेशन होता है। Well, coming back, there was a small break. So coming back, the returns are taxed and one has to be see that the returns is what we get in our pocket. So a post-tax return is important. And taking inflation at 6% compounded every year, if the post-tax returns are less than 6% compounded every year, which means we are losing our money and the buying power of the money is getting lost. Return is not the only characteristic of an investment, but it is one of the important characteristics. There are a lot of other characteristics about investment which we are going to cover one at a time. So we will see the returns on various investments on this chapter and what is the type of tax which are in those investments. So this is the list of investments that we have been talking through and through. It is the same list in the same manner, and the reason why I have kept it this is this becomes very easy to remember and also easy to work with. So here it is. Now this is a pretty dirty slide because this is like an Excel sheet on the various investment that we have talked in the earlier sheet. So let us start with shares on a short term. Now short term I have put it up to 1.5 years and long term means 5 years and above. The medium term is about 1.5 years to 5 years. So that's where it is. So in the shares, if we look into a diversified portfolio of shares, on a short term we get return of 3% to 30%, even more sometimes. Maruti shares went up by 80% in last 1 year. So one or odd share does happen, but will it happen to our share or one which I purchased? Well, that's another matter. But on a diversified long term, we do get a return of 14 to 15%. Now this 14 to 15% is the return of the share since year 2000. So we can very fairly assume it will be the similar while we go ahead. Also, Indian economy is going to keep growing, and a growing economy always have a growing return of the share market. Another interesting thing about the shares is because it is a speculative or considered speculative or non-guaranteed income, it is not considered income, it is considered a gain, a capital gain, and hence the the capital gain part of it is taxed at 12.5%. Now what it means is that you have invested 1 lakh. After 5 years that 1 lakh has become 1,60,000. So you will only be taxed on that 60,000 gain that you have done on 12.5% of that 60,000. Plus there are of course certain offsets and standard deductions which are there, which we can cover at any later point. Mutual fund equity. When we say mutual fund equity, it is basically a diversified group of shares. and with somewhere around 4,000 type of schemes running, we can go into any different type of schemes that we want to. So there we get a slightly better return than shares, because the dividend those shares give also gets reinvested in the mutual funds. And again, because the underlying asset is shares, so the taxes are in the same manner. Fixed deposit in banks or NBFCs, the returns range between 5% to 7% in short and 6 to 9 in long term. Here, very interesting, IDFC First Banks on its saving account gives a monthly interest at the rate of 6%. Whereas most of these large banks like Axis, HDFC and ICICI, they give just 2.5% on the saving, and for 15 days it is the same, and so on. So on a short term, nobody wants much money from you, but on the long term, they are very much interested to take money. Here, the tax is 33% of the income generated from those investment. 33% is the max tax rate, and of course, in case you are not in that, then you will be taxed at a lower rate. However, the return on this is still not 14 to 16% as in shares and mutual funds. Bonds are typically which are issued by governments, government agencies, or some large corporates. They range on a short term from 0 to 5%, and on long term is 3 to 9%. They are more or less similar to fixed deposit, except that the bonds are backed up by different assets of the company. For example, Reliance may issue bonds when in the bonds they pledge their fixed assets as a guarantee to the bonds. Because again, the bonds are guaranteed return, the income tax on them is 33% on the interests. Bullions, gold, silver. Now, gold and silver last year has seen a massive amount of return, which is more for geopolitical reasons. Nobody wants to keep money secure in US dollars or in European currency, as the economies are going down. The rising economies are in Asia. As a result, the safer investment is gold and silver, and they are going up. However, if we look into a 50-year return of gold and silver, they are typically between 6 to 8%. One can buy gold and silver in different forms, and we will talk about those forms when we talk about gold and silver in a different way. We can buy as an ETF, exchange traded fund. We can buy as gold bonds issued by RBI, but please do not buy any other type of gold bond which are issued by a lot of Tom, Dick and Harry, because those are unsecured and those are not regulated by government. They are frauds. Because gold and silver, their price is controlled by London Metal Exchange, or Bombay Zaveri Bazaar, the return are considered as speculative, and hence they are taxed at the rate of 12.5% like a capital gain tax. Property, whether we talk of residential or commercial property, the return ranges from overall on a short term 0 to 20 or 15%, and on a long term approximately 8 to 10%. This data of 5 to 8 or 6 to 8% I am taking out from RBI, Reserve Bank of India index, which they take it for 10 cities in India, and then they issue it for last 25 years. So yes, some property grows at a much faster rate, some property grows at a lower rate. Now we only hear about those properties which grow at a faster rate. We don't hear about those properties which don't grow at a faster rate. So this is the overall average taking from the index. Property is a very interesting market, and one should be clear on why you want to invest in property. because investment in property, in my opinion, is a very strange thing and requires a lot of time and attention. So one should be clear on why you want to invest. International currency, this is the currency investment where the traders, they trade somewhere around trillion of dollars per day. So it is not for people like us. 1 लाख रुपए में हम क्या कर लेंगे, जबकि the figure being traded around few lakh crores per hour. But still, if we want to do, if we can make a small loss to a minor gain, overall the currency gain is purely on the depreciation of our currency. Interestingly, the US dollar to yen, the yen at a peak had become 80 yen to a dollar, and now it is to 140 yen to a dollar. So people who wanted to play smart may have made some money, but then I don't consider most of us to be so smart. Again, these are speculative in nature. There is no guarantee of return, so everything is taken on the capital gains. Patent and copyrights, well, nil, we don't know. And on the long term, it can be anything. This Buddha called Graham Babu from New York, he made a device जिसमें एक तरफ बोलने से और तार से कनेक्ट करके दूसरी तरफ आवाज सुनाई देती थी. So everybody laughed at him. The Western Union, जो कि सबसे ज्यादा मनी ट्रांसफर पे मोर्स कोड से यूज करती थी, they laughed at him. He wanted to sell that patent for $1 lakh, but nobody agreed to buy it. So Graham Bell started to go in business himself. I don't think I have to say anything more about the Graham Bell. He made the Bell Labs and transistor, computer, ICs. They all started off from the research labs of Graham Bell. And IBM started out of Graham Bell. And the whole telephony of US, Canada was from Graham Bell. So a patent which was considered useless, what is the value today? Anybody's guess. Painting and art objects, which I put 0 to 20% because the cost of buying and selling a painting or art object is very high. So, but art objects are always in demand. They are very secretively sold, and अमीरी दिखाने का सबसे अच्छा तरीका यही है. क्यों? अरे भैया, पिकासो की एक पेंटिंग सिर्फ एक ही है दुनिया में, तो जिसके पास है उसकी वो अपनी मूंछों पे ताव दे के दिखाता है ना, और उसके ऊपर फिर लाखों रुपए खर्च करता है, उसकी सिक्योरिटी, एयर कंडीशन, उसको चेंबर में डस्ट फ्री एंड सो ऑन. सो पेंटिंग एंड आर्ट ऑब्जेक्ट्स are also way of investments. This in especially on uber rich, super rich के लिए it is quite common. जस्ट एक चीज याद आ गई. एक वो मोटा लड़का है ना, अनंत अंबानी, उसने अपनी रिचनेस दिखाने के लिए जामनगर में अंतारा खोल दिए, वंतारा. तो वो हाथियों को लेके काम कर रहा है, ठीक है भाई, जो भी है. तो उसमें भी गेन इज ओनली ऑन दी कैपिटल गेन्स. गवर्नमेंट स्कीम्स आर टिपिकली गारंटेड स्कीम्स and they range between 4% to 9% with the short term, medium term, long term. There are many caps on the scheme also. ऐसा नहीं कि आप जितना मर्जी डाल दो. And there, because they are guaranteed return, they are taxed at about 33%. Creative. मुझे एक गाना याद आता है KL सहगल का कि जब दिल ही टूट गया अब जी के क्या करेंगे. अब उसकी क्या वैल्यू है? मेरे लिए बड़ी वैल्यू है, मुझे पसंद आता है, किसी और के लिए कोई वैल्यू नहीं है. क्रिएटिव्स कैन बी एनीथिंग. एनर्जी in the short term, many energy you can't store, many energy you can store. I remember there was a day when the crude oil rate went down to -$50 per barrel because लोगों को वो उठाना था, वो कमिटमेंट था, और उनके पास कोई स्टोरेज करने की जगह नहीं थी. So that was the way market moved. But typically on short term, it can be anything, a little unreliable. On the long term, 3% to 12%, and that is again taken as an income tax. On the energy, it's very interesting that India is planning to make green hydrogen and sell it at the rate of $1 per kg to international market and become an energy exporter. Now that's a pretty ambitious target. Will it happen or not? I don't know. So let us see how that works out. The companies which are working on this is Reliance, then Adani, and then L&T. Commodity. Commodity has been the biggest trading and investment for at least 5,000 years. And even today, they are the largest traded assets in the world. Commodities are traded in villages. Commodities are traded in commodity exchanges, and so on. There are different rules of trading of commodity. Here again, copper as a commodity went up by about double, but प्याज भी एक commodity है और आलू भी एक commodity है. So this again is a very dicey business and not everybody can do it. Bitcoins, I have not understood Bitcoins. एक हवा में एक साइबर के ऊपर में एक सिग्नेचर बना दिया जो यूनिक है, उसको बोल दिया इसमें पैसा है. तो भैया वो जो गुप्ता जी पहले वो पर्ची दे दे के हमें दे देते थे कि लोग वो नहीं है इससे ले लेना, या टॉफी दे देते थे, उसमें और बिटकॉइन में मुझे कुछ अंतर नजर नहीं आता. However, governments have recognized this as a trading thing, and they have put on that because this is speculative, there's no guarantee, hence this will be taken as a 12.5% interest. We will talk about all these type of assets in detail, one asset at a time, later in the course. Livestock, well, dogs बड़े महंगे बिकते हैं, इतने इमोशनल हैं. Then गाय भैंस बहुत बिकती हैं, कुत्ते बहुत बिकते हैं, कैट्स बिकते हैं, ऊंट बिकते हैं, गधे बिकते हैं, सब बिकता है. कैसे क्या बिकता है? टोटल अनरेगुलेटेड मार्केट है. बिकॉज इट इज कंसिडर्ड एग्रीकल्चर, देयर इज नो टैक्स अबाउट इट. हेल्थ, भगवान न करे आपको कुछ हो जाए, अगर कुछ नहीं हुआ तो आपको रिटर्न जीरो, जो आपने इंश्योरेंस खरीदी थी वो चली गई. और अगर कुछ हो गया तो जितना आपने डाला था, जितना कि आपने इंश्योरेंस खरीदी थी, वो हो जाएगा. At the age of 68, I have a group insurance of 5 lakh, which I pay a premium of 53,000. अगर कुछ हो गया तो 5 लाख रुपए तक का मेरा हॉस्पिटल बिल मिल जाएगा, so I can get a lot of returns. Insurance is also again same thing. Right to use and right time to use are absolutely uncertain. क्या और कैसे होगा पता नहीं. I remember a movie called जागते रहो. राज कपूर की पिक्चर थी और इंडिया में बिल्कुल नहीं चली. But then in Russia it became super hit, and then in India it also became super hit. So ये creativity, right to use और ये सब चीजें ये बहुत ही uncertain होती हैं, and that is the fun of it and that's the pain of it. Education, return on short term is obviously nil. कितना पैसा खर्च किया आपने फीस में, ट्यूशंस में, ये सब कुछ नहीं मिलने वाला. बट ऑन द लॉन्ग टर्म हम सब लोगों की जिंदगी हमारी उसी एजुकेशन, हमारे एक्सपीरियंस, हमारी किस्मत पे है. सो द रिटर्न ऑन एजुकेशन, स्पेशली फ्रॉम अ गुड कॉलेज in a good way, is unlimited. कहा यह जाता है कि बच्चों को पैसा दो या ना दो, ऐसी एजुकेशन दे दो कि जो आप पैसा दोगे उससे 1000 गुना ज्यादा कमा पाए. So the lessons we have learned is there's a large variety of returns. Then there are other elements on the same which I call the on the investment, which are risk, liquidity and so on, which is also to be considered, and tax is also to be considered. और एक एक करके हम इन सब के ऊपर में जाते जा रहे हैं. So returns, they change with time, change with market condition, change with government policies, change with geopolitical, change with technology, change with social responsibility, and one has to keep a watchful eye on return as they are changing. Thank you very much. Questions, keep on shooting to me and we will have further discussions. Thank you. Thank you very much.